Where did that come from? Why do you think that we got to a place where we see some plants as good and some plants as bad?
I think the neat and tidy concept has come into play. There's been a relentless assault on our natural world to be replaced with something very orderly. We see nature as something that we need to control and that we own those spaces. And it's a kind of human supremacy in a funny sort of way. And somewhere along the lines, we lost our way with the old knowledge. And the old knowledge around weeds, wildflowers, as I call them, seemed to go down the maternal line. So it was women who would be taking care of people, looking after the sick children, tending the home garden, that carried that knowledge. And women historically have been castigated for this and put down, and society became very patriarchal. And I think along those times where women were dealing with this, the knowledge was becoming more and more diluted and lost along the way. And I think it's time to resurrect it a little bit and become much more in touch with these weeds and not see them as a problem that need to be solved.
Yeah. So what does the bigger picture look like for you, in a world where there are allies? Like how does that change society, or how does that change the people?
It creates a much stronger community. So it creates a resilience within the community.
So the people become closer, rally together.
People have access to things that can help them, and in return, they need to for free. Yeah. In a world where we monetize everything, that can be important. But also, it's about giving back. So once you understand the value of what these beings give you, you need to be in a reciprocal relationship with them, whereby you respect them and you therefore take greater care of the environment, which means other beings flourish, which actually has a knock-on effect for our communities and our own health. So it's a mutual thriving that happens when you enter into a relationship with the plants. And that's something that I think is missing and would benefit our communities enormously.
Yeah. You talk about the plants as like an ally, like as a being. Yeah. So you see them as like a living being.
Yeah. I see them as my friends.
Yeah, your friends.
100% my friends. They're my kin. They're my family.
Yeah.
I get terribly excited in the spring when the buds start coming and the new growth starts, and I'm like, oh, my kin are returning. They're my friends. They're back, and so I look after them because they look after me.
Yeah.
And I will take, but I take respectfully, and I've learnt what I can give back in return as well. So it's a mutual exchange.
Yeah, like I suppose I never really thought about plants as a living being. Only in the last few years, like they're seeds, they grow and they're alive and they thrive, and I just never looked at them as an intelligence, I suppose.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't. They just see it as something that
they're
grows.
Just things that you pass by
as an object.
Yeah. They are objectified 100%, and I think it's it really changes things when you look at thing living and growing around you as a being in its own right that is part of a much wider intelligent system. Actually, I mean, our plants are messengers. They are messengers. They tell us about soil health. They tell us about insect life.
And when you say they tell us, like, so it sounds like that. How do they tell you? Like, how do you get the information from them?
Through education, I guess, and observation. Observation is hugely important, and that would be part of the permaculture world that I'm involved with, that you spend a lot of time watching and observing before taking actions. So when I start people off with their foraging and herbalism journey, I always suggest that people pick 1 or 2 plants that they already know. It's usually things like dandelions or nettles or brambles. And I say, watch that plant for a whole 12 months. Watch it through every season. Watch what visits it. Observe the insects. What's the soil like? What's the rest of the habitat where it's growing? And once you start that process, you become very aware and tuned into things. And then just through study, you can also learn more. But books will only take you so far. You need the experience in the field. And so when I say that the plants have messages for us, a lot of that comes just from a deep immersion into that world where you can observe things. And through using them as well, you get to know their taste, you get to know their texture, you get to know the effects that they have. So, and in terms of a sort of more observational way of looking at, say, thistles in the landscape, you would look at a thistle and you would ask it, what is that plant telling me? What is its role here? So the messages come from its function in the landscape. So I've been working with Japanese knotweed a lot with the council. And the view there was always that our invasive species are knocking out all of our other native species, that this plant has somehow a thug which has arrived into our landscape and is obliterating all of our native plants. And actually, from working with it for 4 years, I observed very keenly that wasn't always the case. I mean, there's no black and white. There's lots of nuance in ecology. But I observed very much that there were other plants growing alongside. So what was this plant actually trying to do? Why is it there taking over? And I realised that actually it's us. We've wrecked the environment. And so this plant has come in and it's trying really hard to heal the landscape. Japanese knotweed puts down big root system, aerates the soil, builds the soil, big woody stalks, which is carbon, huge green leaves, which is nitrogen. That all falls in the autumn, breaks down, creates more soil in areas which have undergone huge disturbance usually. So the plant is giving us a message.
Do you know, it's funny that you said it, because I always hear Japanese knotweed, it's bad. I'm always like, well, my view on it was, is it bad? If that was bad, why would it be grown? It's grown for a reason.
It is grown.
It's just because, this is the way I think, is it growing that way because the other plants aren't able to thrive and this one is able to and regenerate, you know? Yeah. I mean, I don't talk to many people. I have never spoken to anyone about it, but this is the way I think about things, because nature always finds its way.
Yes.
It'll always do what it needs to do. And if we just never had any effect, the chances are that knotweed might stop and the other plants would come back over time. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I have observed stands that have been left alone that eventually just become naturalised in place. They don't spread. They reduce down. They cooperate perfectly fine with the other plants around them. But areas where you see it has really taken off, for example, alongside the Glenaganan River in Cairn. The Glenaganan has had virtually all of the trees removed from the banks. There's been huge gravel levees built up, and Japanese knotweed is basically, woohoo, I can live here. You know, my role in Japan would be to grow on volcanic laval dominated slopes where not a lot else can thrive, and it starts to rebuild the environment. And so it's just doing the same thing. So if we don't want it there for whatever reason, then we need to do its job for it. And that was largely what the project that we did with Donegal County Council was all about. It was about looking at the soil that it grows in and looking at the habitat where it's found itself, and basically creating a situation and circumstances whereby the knotweed just doesn't need to be there anymore because we've done its role for it, and replaced it with native plants. Nature abhors a vacuum. You can't just remove something and expect it not to be there anymore. Something has to grow there.
Yeah.
So put in place what you do want and create the habitat that you do want. And so, that was the sort of hypothesis that we came at that project with, and largely it worked. As I said, there's always nuance,